Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time, so stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of The Crazy Life. I'm Brian, and joining me as usual is Henno.
Howdy.
And, we're back doing our thing here, I guess. Whew.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, yep. Man, I've been, like a lot of people in the country, it's like I keep seeing these maps of the country, and it just looks like everywhere it's like 100 degrees, and normally it's more like in the Southwest or in the Texas, those kind of areas, but it's like all the way up into like New York and, Massachusetts and all that. It's like 100, because we have a heat dome over us right now, apparently, that I think we have one more day of high heat and humidity, and then it's supposed to cool off and all that. But, I told this on Salty Language, but Monday our power went out because there was a pop-up storm. And it just had really high winds, and it knocked out power to like 20,000 people in Michigan. So we sat around for a little bit, and it was starting to get to be too much. And we called my sister, and my sister lives a couple minutes away, so we went over there and hung out for a couple hours, and then the power came back on. So, we were very fortunate, but. The main reason I wanted to bring that up here is the gratitude part of it, because I find myself a lot of times in life where, you find yourself in a moment where if you can stop for a second, you can go, wow, I'm really blessed. Mm-hmm. I'm really fortunate here in that, I had somewhere to go. We didn't have to just, there were a lot of people that were just home and probably slept, and were just swampy all night because they got to get up for work,
Oh my God.
So funny. We were fortunate enough we could go somewhere. My sister had air conditioning, and then also just being fortunate enough that our power came back on like an hour and a half or 2 hours. It was something like that later. Actually, it had been a good hour, and then we were at her place, I think, from 11:30 to about 1:30. So it was about 3 hours after thinking about it. I was thinking it was only an hour and a half, but it was like 3 hours. So, we were fortunate in that regard as well. And I really did kind of catch myself in the moment. And I remember even saying it to my mom is like, you're fortunate enough to even have a roof over your head. But, going beyond that, there are a lot of people that don't have somewhere cool to get reprieve, like they were cool. They were running on the news every day basically this week, like, hey, the library's open, some churches are open, the mission, the one mission downtown is open, they all have air conditioning. So, buses have air conditioning, like, please get out of the heat for a little bit if you need to. And, I love that, the churches and stuff that were open and whatever, they all had bottles of water and everything so people could, rehydrate and stuff. So, but it does make you really kind of step back for a minute and go, wow, we're really fortunate that we don't have to worry about those situations. And even when we did, we had an immediate, solution to it. So, yeah, but it still sucks. It doesn't, all that said, it doesn't excuse that it's still awful in the moment. Because I was sitting watching wrestling and it went out once and came back on and then it went out again. And I'm like, man, because it's like it's hot and it's humid and this is going to be awful, And then finally we were just like, let's just go over to Chrissy's house and, wait it out basically, because I knew she wouldn't care, None of my family. I mean, if I had called any of my siblings, they would have been like, yeah, come over,
Yeah.
Or hell, if I had gotten a hold of Tony, he would have been like, or other friends, they would have been like, yeah, for sure, come over and get out of that. So, yeah. I mean, I was a little more worried about, it's funny because it affects me worse than my mom, but I was more worried about it affecting her than me, Like, I'm the one that really doesn't handle heat well. So, yeah, we came home and the air had already been on for a little bit. It was nice and cool in the house. I was like, okay, it's like
I liked your idea of calling the house.
Yeah.
To see if the phone rang.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
See
Yeah.
if the power's back on.
Right, because we were trying to figure out, again, my sister only lives like 5 minutes from here. So we could have drove, gone ahead and come home, and if it wasn't on, we could have went back. But I was like, how can I check to see if the power's on? And then it, like you said, it hit me that like we have a air quote landline. It's not really a landline because it's through cable, but basically if the cable's out, the phone won't work.
Yep.
But if the cable's on, as long as the router gets power to it and, there's service, so, or not the router, I'm sorry, the modem, so it, as long as that, and then it was like, also, like I said on the other side, we have an answering machine because our phone's old. And it was like, if it goes to the answering machine, it has to have power. There's no battery backup on that thing. So, when I called and it went to the machine, I was like, well, there's our answer, and, we usually would go like kind of back roads over to my sister's, but we didn't go that way originally because all the lights were out. Because all the power in that area was out. So all the traffic lights and everything. I told my mom, I was thinking about it. I'm like, we should go the main road because Toledo still has power. So it's like if we go that way, you don't have to worry about driving down some kind of dark back roads. And who knows, it's just a safer venture. It doesn't take any longer going that way. It's just usually we take the back roads because there's less traffic, Yeah. So, but yeah, like I said, it sucked, but it also, in that moment, it was an immediate, like, moment of gratitude, to my sister, of course, for letting us come over, even though, she would have never turned us away. There was never a doubt, but it was still, we get over there and she goes, I guess my one nephew was staying over there too. So she's like, apparently this is, the place to stay tonight. So yeah, I'm real happy because it was hot. I do need to get, I think I said this on Salty Language. I saw on Amazon, they have like fans for camping that you can USB charge like in your phone Yeah. in your car. And they're like $30. So I was like, I should for sure get us at least one of those at some point. Because for a while, that wouldn't have been bad. If we could have just had a little air moving, it wouldn't have been bad. Because, obviously you can't have fans on because there's no power. It was like 85 or 87 and humid out. So it's not, you don't want to open the windows because it's, it feels like crawling into an oven. It was already warm enough, So, yeah, we got to try to come up with a different solution just in case. I mean, again, we've got enough places to go. We'd be okay. But, if the weather had been bad outside, we probably wouldn't have went, So there's that scenario. So anyway, but yeah, I have, I noticed this week too, I don't know what it is. Like the other day, this just like kind of wave wash over me about just like loneliness, And it was funny because I posted something about it on social media, and I had people reach out to me that are, like, you can talk to me whenever you're feeling, and it's like I appreciate it, but it's not that kind of loneliness. It's how it is, like when you're just sharing a space with somebody that you're with, like your spouse, your significant other, whatever, and it's just like you just know they're there. It's that kind of loneliness, is that there's not that person, that you're sharing your life with kind of situation. It's more that loneliness. It's not just because I live with somebody. It's not like, if I was lonely in the other regard, all I have to do is go in the other room, and we can have a conversation and what, so it's not that type of loneliness. It's the kind of loneliness that friends can't really cure for you. And, I'm okay with, my solitude for the most part, but there's just waves that wash over you where you're just like, I really wish there was, somebody I could, I was going to get dinner with that, I don't know how to explain it better, but it's just a different situation when it's somebody that you're, in a situation or, a relationship with or whatever. There's just something different about it, because like I said, I have friends that would, if I called, would be like, yeah, sure, let's go out to dinner or whatever. It's like, it's just not that same thing. It's like, because at a certain point they're going home and you're still going home to your loneliness. It's, you know what I mean? It's like you're treating, I don't want to compare it in this way, but it reminds you a little bit of using alcohol to get away from your problems. A few hours later, the alcohol wears off and you still have your problems, and it's similar in that part of it,
But you're right in that it's very similar to that. It's more amplified when like, let's say you were with somebody and you broke up, and you're going out with all your friends to not feel your breakup.
Yeah.
But then eventually you have to go home and be alone.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of
that's the acute version of that.
And that's what I mean. This is like a version of that, but it's not like you said. That's much worse.
Yeah, that's like super acute. You super feel it. You have like it's almost like you have like the remnants of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and again, it passes. Yeah. But it just, you can't help but, it's just like learning anything else, right? Like when you meditate, you have a thought or a feeling, and you let it come in, you sit in it for a minute, and then you let it go, kind of a thing. And that's kind of where I was at. I needed to get that out of my head, and it's just the feeling that I have at times. And it's, it's a sucky feeling. I don't wish it on anybody. Loneliness sucks, and like I said, I'm fortunate in the regard that I do live with somebody. I have plenty of friends that would hang out with me, talk to me, whatever, so that for those situations. And that's the thing, is it's like, I'm not feeling alone. I'm feeling lonely in this situation. Like you said, it's like, and sitting in it just sucks, because sitting in it most of the time just makes you think about it more and obsess on it more. So it's hard to let that go sometimes. And that's why I was like, I just need to post this somewhere to kind of get the thought out of my head. It's the reason I joined Twitter in the first place, right? Was to get my depression thoughts out of my head so that they would, be out there and just gone, kind of a thing. But I do appreciate, anyone who's listening that did reach out or whatever. It's like, I appreciate friends willing to be there for me, of course, but it's just unfortunately it's not a hole they can fill, so but other than that, I've been pretty decent, other than the heat's kept me from using my dang griddle that I just got, which really sucks. I've only gotten to use it like 3 times because it's been so bloody hot. or rainy that it's just like I can't get out and use it. It kind of sucks. It's like I picked the worst summer in a while it's just summer today, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's like I picked the worst year of the so far for me to have gotten this thing. But yeah. I just like for it to cool down so I can actually cook inside the house again, because I'm also looking at stuff I bought. Like I was telling Tony, I'm hungry, and it's like, oh, well, I can make, and it's like, it's so hot in here, though. I don't want to fire the oven up, and even the stove, it's like there's limits. Like I want something I can cook really quick and be done. I don't want something that it's going to take a while, and I'm looking at produce I've bought and different stuff. It's like I have a bunch of like red pepper, green pepper, mushrooms, and I'm like, well, the peppers at least, I can chop those up and stick them in the freezer and use them later and whatever. But it's like some of the other stuff that I bought, I'm like, I gotta find something to use these in like now, so that I don't end up having to throw them away. But yeah, so. But yeah, like I said, overall, I'm doing pretty good. It's just there's some waves sometimes that kind of suck, and you just ride them out and keep pushing forward. So, how about you? How you been?
I've been kind of how do I call this? It's been very paradoxical, I guess. I guess would be one way to phrase it. Most of it, like it's any frustrations I have are generally just around my work. And I have had some of the most satisfying moments recently because of my work, and also the most frustrating. And the frustrating is I just don't. Having people make decisions that I cannot understand.
Yeah.
Like that for the life of me, do not understand where it comes from. And then trying to keep my ego out of it. And this, the reason there's a paradox is like, I went for some training on our climate control systems, and these are advanced training courses. This is for people that own businesses that are installing these systems. So it teaches you it gives you basically a rough outline of how to install one of these systems and design it yourself. And the company, very few people run off and start their own business, get licensed with the hardware and the software and go out and do it on their own.
Yeah.
They typically are hiring,
yeah,
the company that we contract with to design things, just because they just have decades of experience with the stuff.
Right.
But what I love is they're willing to teach you how to do it yourself if you want.
Yeah.
They have no qualms about it, and I love that. And I got an email saying, hey, we'd like you to come do this class because you have a contract. It's whatever, $1,000. We're going to waive that fee because we have a contract with you, and we hope to see you. And it's at one time a year they do a full week course where there were guys in there that had been there all week. I showed up for Thursday, Friday, and they'd already been there and done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and various levels of programming. And it was kind of I had a little bit of pride in the fact that I was asked to just show up for the last 2 days, the advanced stuff. Right. And that because I pretty much know the rest of it. And
because it's not like the company was like, oh, the week-long one's 5,000, but weekend is only 1,000. Okay, we'll only send you for the weekend. It wasn't a scenario like that where so you're right. It's like they were like, oh, you don't need these other days, basically, which is cool.
You don't need to be there. We'd like you to come for this, and it was spot on. It was exactly what I needed. And most of these, it's just like with any sort of seminar or work related, whether it's a convention or that kind of a thing. Yes, you learn things, but more often than not, it's about motivation and inspiration. And I needed that because there were some things I wanted to do at my work that I could work on. This is all, for me, it's mostly about energy management, making our systems work more efficiently.
Right.
And there were some things I wanted to do, and I just needed that little, kick in the butt to say, yeah, you can do this. You just, and so in the class, we're going through the process of the class where it tells you how to build programs was the days before, but this is how you implement them and create and stuff. And so it was really, I really enjoyed myself, and I get back to work on Sunday, and I go walk by our horribly, been a very frustrating project with these stairs, and it's becoming more and more expensive. And I couldn't believe what I saw. Like it was, and I knew it was none of my coworkers. I knew it was probably my general manager, and I knew it was probably the health club's general manager. And so I fired off a group email that day because I just was like, yeah, I know this isn't our employees. And I mean, to say I was livid was an understatement. And the hard part is I could tell somebody went out there and tried to make things right. And if I gave them a list of everything not to do, they went and did it.
Oh, geez.
I mean, everything.
Yeah.
Everything. And nobody bothered to call me.
Jeez.
Anybody could have decided to make a phone call. Even the people that were warning the general managers that I was going to be really angry about this, they could have called me.
Yeah.
Anybody could have called me.
Right.
Oh, we didn't want to bother you in your training. Oh, it's funny. The first thing they say when I get into training is, well, we know that you all have jobs and that they probably need to get a hold of you. So if you need to, just feel free to step up and go outside and take a phone call. We'll catch you back up. Yeah, and luckily by the next morning, I had come to terms with the fact that the person that went out there and tried to make things right was probably working under the gun, and he didn't have the information because I hadn't given it to him because he didn't need it. Yeah. It was information that he was going to get, but I didn't need to share it with him that week because it wasn't needed at that time.
Yeah, right.
And it was not in the need to know. And so I decided the next day, because I needed to tell him, because it was just a fact that I needed to tell him that everything he did was wrong. I had to tell him that. Yeah. And the hard part about it is it wasn't his fault, and I know he really wants to do a good job. Yeah. So I decided to do it in front of the general manager, who at this point I'd already found out. Well, he comes in on Tuesdays, so I'd already told the general manager, I walked in the door and he said that was my call, and I flat out looked at my general manager and said, well, you made the wrong call. And then eventually I saw the general manager for the health club, and I was putting everything back up, and I just looked at him like, I'm putting all this stuff back up, and you guys ruined this entire project. Everything's rusted now. Oh, geez. We spent $7,000 on a paint job and probably a couple $1,000s on bead blasting all of this steel, and you left it out in the rain. Oh, geez. And I was just like, I was actually kind of crushed, because this whole project has crushed me. It's been wrong from the beginning. It continues to be wrong. With hindsight, I should have just slammed the brakes in January and said, we're eating whatever costs that have been put into fabrication. We're going to eat all of it, and we're starting over. Yeah. Because none of it's worked. As a matter of fact, this week I found out we're going to have the welder back here for another at least 2 days, because the engineer designed something based on a like a factory rather than a residence. It's been so frustrating. So what it really came down to, and this is why I'm kind of going into a little more detail about this, was I needed to blow up a little. Yeah. I was right to blow up this time.
Yeah.
I want to be the right size for the situation.
Yep.
This situation deserved me to call some people out.
Yeah.
But then it was about sit down and realize, I don't need to yell at everybody. I do need to tell, my coworker the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to tell him with the right caveats, meaning that I know you would never do this.
Yeah. Well, that's we've all been there, right? Where you do something, you at the time think you're doing the right thing or the best job you can do, but you just foul it all up. And sometimes a butt chewing is just coming. And you kind of need it, but as long as, like you said, it's like, but as long as you're giving context as to like why it wasn't right and how to do it right in the future, you don't mind taking those as much. It's less of an ego hit than if someone just comes up and just starts yelling at you and tells you screwed up and you're an idiot,
right. And that's the thing is that unfortunately that's how usually it happens, especially on job sites.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
And I've never wanted to be that person.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate I've never had to deal with that person. I mean, to a degree, my last facilities manager,
right.
But it's been my goal. It's been never to be that person. And so I sat down with him, with the general manager, and I just told him, I said, look, someday we're going to laugh at this.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm just going to tell you the truth. And the reason I'm telling you the truth is because I know you would never do this. And he just looked at me, and I could tell he was crushed.
Yeah.
And I said, but it's not your fault. It's his fault. And I pointed right at the general manager.
Fair enough.
Right. And I was like, and then I said, my ego wants to go on about how I deserve to be respected more. My ego wants to say, how dare you? The whole don't you know who I am kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I said, but this is the real truth is this whole project just felt out of my control from the beginning. And the one thing I thought I could, my coworker and I were going to be able to control was this paint job. And that got taken from me.
Yeah.
Because your lack of patience, like a phone call.
Yeah.
And that's the part I don't understand. I even said, it's unprofessional.
Yeah.
And I said, the hardest part for me is that two people with no experience in this field. I stress, I'm like, you have in this field, none, nada. And none of the information as to why things are the way they are decided to make a decision.
Yeah.
And you're the general managers of two facilities.
Yeah.
That's your basis for decision. Why am I working here?
Yeah. But it's sad because
why am I working for you?
That's so sad because you've heard that story from tons of people though, where they know more about the job than their boss does, because so many companies hire from outside rather than within, and they'll bring in somebody because they have years of managing blah blah blah, and it's like, yeah, but you've never managed this, you've never done this job, you don't understand the nuance, and I hate it so much, but it's it's been common policy for years and years, especially in corporations. They do it a ton. I don't know how many managers I trained and watched get fired because they were terrible at their job. Meanwhile, I couldn't get a promotion, type of situation. It's like, yeah. I'm good enough to train them, but I'm not good enough to do the job. Like, I don't understand how that can work. If you trust me enough to train the person, how can I not be, and I'd have the same thing at times where I'd look at people and be like, how is it I'm working for you? How is it you're my boss? Like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, you don't understand any of this because you've been here a week and you have power. It's insanity, And
I don't, the bottom line for me is I actually don't want to be the boss.
Yeah, that's fair too. Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah.
But I would expect you to act professionally.
Yeah. But a good manager really should at least listen to the team. Or if you don't have expertise in some field and someone on your team does, put your
You ask
ego
the
aside.
questions.
Yeah. Put your ego aside and ask the questions. Exactly.
Yeah, and they were just, we're just sick of this. And it's like, I don't care. What you can wait 2 days till I'm back.
Right. Well, that's the thing, though. Even if they had called you and you didn't respond immediately, you could have checked your phone at the end of the meetings or whatever and be like, oh, I need to follow up with this. And send a text or called. You know, like you said, there's really no reason for them to not call you at all. You know?
The thing that hurt me the most is that they put my coworker in that situation. I think that bothered me actually more.
Yeah.
Is that they made somebody go out there and not do his best work.
Yeah.
Under pressure.
Yeah.
And then there's my part where I honestly feel hurt. I really do.
Yeah.
I really I felt hurt. And luckily I was given the opportunity to say what I needed to say.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I was also able to say, I'm going to be in a really bad mood for a few days, but then everything's going to go back to me being normal.
Yeah. I just
right?
need to let it, it's got to fester.
need
Well,
to
like I said earlier, right? You got to sit in
terrible.
it a little bit and then you can let it pass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes the sitting in it is longer than others. Sometimes it's a few minutes, an hour. Sometimes it's a few days, a week. Yeah.
So, and what didn't help was the other day my general manager was out of town and I was talking to the coworker who was directly involved with this. And I said, so, what really happened? And he told me at one point that when the general manager told him to do this thing, he's like, I'm not just going to go do this. He goes to the other GM and says, Heno's going to be pissed. And the other GM says, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I went, okay. I'm like, thanks for telling me that.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I'm not the type to then, turn it around.
Yeah.
But I'm going to remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't care.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
When you make a statement like that, it really becomes, whether it was intended to or not, it really becomes ego at that point. That's almost making it personal, because
that's why I feel hurt. It feels kind of personal to me.
Yeah. Because he basically was like, I don't care if Heno knows what he's talking about and he's going to be upset or, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm making the call. It's like, you gotta, it feels like such a narcissist comment,
Yeah.
And yeah, he does get to make the call. He's the boss, whatever. But it's still, like I said, it's like part of being the boss is you got to take that step back and assess, like, is this going to make things cost more money? Is it going to take more time? Is it going to be bad for the project?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That is literally your job, is to assess.
I don't care.
But I don't care. Yeah.
I don't care.
Because I said so. Yeah.
And there were options, and I knew the options. I'd actually already planned for them.
Yeah.
I knew what the options were. We just didn't need to discuss them at that time.
Right.
If somebody brought them up, one call, I would have been like, do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
And everyone should be happy. Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard. And then the next week, we've had this weird mystery leak thing that's happened, and I jumped on it. The other guys that have been dealing with this for a while, I know they didn't want to deal with it. They went and took care of something else for me, and it just completely kicked butt. And I love where I work. I love who I work with. I love the level that we're able to accomplish what we accomplish.
Yeah.
Like, it is so satisfying. And to have this thing right now is real. And then I find out that maybe our GM is doing this little side gig. And I'm just like, why are you even here?
Yeah.
It's hard. I'm like, it's hard when you miss the guy that you thought was incompetent.
It's the old devil, right? Like, careful
Like,
what
it
you wish for.
sucks.
Yeah, it's like, you have a neighbor that kind of annoys you, and you see they're moving, and you're like, yes, and then you get a neighbor that's way more annoying, and you're like, oh, I want Jerry back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just feels yucky, and for the last few couple years, I haven't talked about work being yucky in a
No,
long
not really.
time.
No, I mean, you've had frustrations like with that one, that big project you guys had that kept going
yeah,
sideways on you. But
yeah,
but you, even with
leak,
that
yeah,
though,
but-
it was frustrating. But you were still like, how do we solve this problem? I think you were kind
Yeah.
of more along like, we're gonna beat this, situation than it
Yeah.
was like.
Yeah, it's gonna get fixed.
Yeah.
That's what the hard part about this for me is I don't know how this gets fixed because I don't have the authority, and
Yeah.
like I got a coworker that just keeps showing up late all the time,
Yeah.
and I keep expressing that frustration because the word supervisor is not in my job description.
Right.
It is only in one person's job description, and that person refuses to do it. And I went through emails, and I wrote a calendar out, and I'm like, that's called a pattern.
Yeah. yeah. Every once in a while is one thing, or hey, I got stuck in traffic or whatever. Sure,
no, it's
whatever, right? Yeah.
Every week.
But
every
but all
week.
the time.
And so I went to that employee's face and I told him, I said, I just got in his face. I'm like, you need to show up on time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Go complain.
Yeah.
Go complain to the general manager.
Yeah.
Please go complain.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah. That way we can for
'Cause
sure have the conversation.
Well, this way I can call out the general manager
Right.
for not doing his job. Because
Yeah.
that's what this all comes down to.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Because like you said, if you're not a supervisor, what can you do, right? It's all you can do is complain. You can't, you can't fire him, write him up, whatever, take any sort of action because that's, as you said, that's not in your job description.
Yeah, and that's why I
Yeah.
don't want to go to him and tell him what he should do because guess what? Not my job.
Yeah.
But as his coworker, I can.
Yeah. Because it is frustrating and not fair to your other coworkers to show up late when there's work to be done because you're making everybody else have to pick up your slack. I mean, I know sometimes it might seem petty, but it's not. It's really not right to do that to your coworkers. And it's one of those things that's like, unless it's something you absolutely cannot control, fix it. Whatever it is that's making you show up late, find the solution for it. Like if it's traffic, then leave 15 minutes earlier.
Yeah, exactly. It's personal stuff, and I'm just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
You make the adjustments or change your schedule.
Right.
One or the other.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
It's in your control.
Right.
You can control this. It's nobody else's control. And yeah. So the end result of all this is, I continue to be grateful for everyone that has shown me a better way of doing things.
Yeah.
And that, my ego is still my ego, and sometimes it gets out of hand, but I feel like when I need it to be in the right size, it is.
Yeah. It really does show you what work you have done and how far you have come. Because I know we've talked about both of us having, temperament issues in the past to where that kind of thing, man, I you telling me that, I'm like, it riles me up a little bit, right? Like, I feel like I want to go yell at him, Like, so I can understand where you would be that way too, because I'd be the same way. I would have been in that dude's office the next day and we would have been having some words, because but now I think I would have handled it more similarly to how you did, which was more, a blow up is deserved here. And it's one of those where, I've mentioned on here before where I've actually talked to my therapist about, like, is this an appropriate reaction?
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes a blow up is, or an sometimes an overreaction is an appropriate reaction. Some people may not think so, but it really can be at times because you need people to understand you've pushed me not just to being a little upset, like you've pushed me into the stratosphere on this, and I've got to point that at you because you caused this, and now, okay, get some things out. We can say what we need to, take space, whatever needs to happen, and then we can move forward. But
we move on. Exactly.
Sometimes you just gotta, like remember a while ago when you talked about how, I don't remember what it was, but you were doing something and you basically said that like kind of like you threw a temper tantrum basically. And I was like,
yes.
I feel like we all need to do that from time to time.
And it was funny. It was actually about the same thing.
Yeah.
It was about him not taking action.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized is he doesn't want to take action. And I'm like, well then why do you have this job?
Why are you in a leadership position if you won't take action?
If you won't take action, because
that's part of what you're getting paid for, because that's a hard thing to do.
Well, that's what we need you to do.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
You. I'm sorry, but you get to be the bad guy.
Exactly. That's what I was meaning. That's part of what you're getting paid for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when it hits the fan, you're the one that they come to ask, why did this happen?
Yep.
And if you actually don't have a clue, I'm sorry, but that's not my problem.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So it's just weird. And then been had a few gigs lately that were really great. It was funny was we did this gig for this wedding, and again I didn't have all the information. And I was driving around lost, and then finally, by the time I got there, I was not in a good mood.
No, I imagine.
Because I'm like, I take, and I realized that I can talk to my bandmate about this openly because he'll understand. Which is, when I show, when we start playing, we're musicians, we're bandmates, we're a team.
Yeah.
But while I'm setting up all the PA gear, I'm on a job site and I'm working for my clients.
Yeah. And
I will act like I'm on a job site.
Yeah.
And that means I'm going to call you out for doing dumb stuff.
Right.
Like suddenly shutting all the power down. It's like, I'm going to say stuff to that.
Right.
And it's going to be like me. It's going to be just like me and you on a job site.
Yeah.
And he's been in the construction industry for decades and decades.
Yeah.
Total pro. I mean, he's a total pro. So when I explain that to him, I know he'll totally understand and he's cool about it, But it was funny. There was this one point where he kind of looked at me like he had this moment of like, how dare you talk to me like that? And I was just like, dude, bring it.
Yeah. You're right though.
Because I'm going to own you on this one.
But you're right though. You want everything set up because you want things to go off well, because either you are doing that for somebody else, like you're being paid to do a job. You want to make sure you deliver. It's especially it's stuff like a wedding, like because if you follow up at a wedding, people remember that.
Oh, yeah.
People remember bad DJs, bad bands, awful cake, bad food. Yeah. These are things that people remember and talk about for years off a wedding, So it's like you don't want to put those memories in someone, ruin someone's day that way, So
and like even like I said, I was like, I'm good. Wait till half of that keg is gone and everybody's happy.
Yeah.
And that's how it was. It was great.
Right, of course.
I love it. Music's been a blast. God, I'm having so much fun this year.
Good.
I am so happy to say that because boy, I was not having fun last year.
I was just going to bring that up. I was going to say that's a real turnaround from last year because it felt more like, this is going to sound weird, but because you're talking about doing gigs, but I feel like last year, you were approaching music more as a job and not as a creative outlet or fun or a hobby, however you want to word it, and that sucks. Our friend Jeannie loves to bake, and for years people will be like, you should start a business, and she's like, no, because I don't want it to be a job. I want it to be an outlet and something I enjoy. And I get it, right? Like when people started coming to me and wanting me to draw and design things for them, and it's like, but they don't want to pay you or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't why I do this, I don't mind, or if I offer, it's one thing. We had a conversation about that on the show years ago, I remember, because of you being a musician, about, people, they have expectations of you. Like, oh, I know I have a friend who's creative or is a plumber or whatever, and so many people, don't want to pay. And it's like, hey, their time is still valuable here. If they offer to do it gratis, that's great, but if not, maybe at least offer to throw a few bucks. But yeah, now it's funny because you talk about doing gigs, and it seems like as you're doing music for money, you seem like you're enjoying it more this year.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
Well, and
kind of
here's
funny. Last year you weren't getting
Right?
paid as much, but you were enjoying it less. Like,
Yeah, like
and it's not
these
the
guys
money.
are-
The money has nothing to do with it. You know,
Yeah, but it does because
Little bit.
You're right. It actually
Yeah.
doesn't. What it is, it's the recognition and respect.
Yeah.
So these guys have cut me in an extra share for being the sound guy.
Oh, well, that's fair. You're
right?
doing
So
two jobs.
They call me 2 shares.
Yeah.
There's I get the share of the band proceeds.
Yeah.
And I get sound guy share.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind if I for me, he says, oh, let's get there an hour before. I'm there 2 hours before.
Right.
Because I know what it takes. And I'm there an hour after everyone leaves.
Yeah.
And
That's
I'm
what
totally good with it because I feel like my time has been respected.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's great. And then out of all of this, I did have a serious retail therapy moment on Monday.
Oh,
Was
boy.
it Monday? Maybe Tuesday. But it actually wasn't that bad.
Finally
In
bought
the
your
big-
midlife crisis Corvette.
Yeah, not quite, but close, but in a way. But it was this is the funny part about it was there was not 1 second that I questioned what I was doing.
Oh, okay. I don't know if this is good or bad. Okay.
No, it's totally okay.
It's good? Okay. all
There
right.
was. Do I need another guitar? No, I don't.
Right.
However, it's copper metallic, and I have a list of copper metallic guitars on my Reverb account that I've been watching.
Oh,
and
okay.
this one pops up, and it's actually it's an American company that's making a line of guitars in Indonesia, and every review says it's the best bang for the buck you're ever going to get out of a guitar. It's like these instruments play too good for how reasonably priced they were.
Oh, interesting.
And so I just saw it. I didn't even know if they had them yet. I just sent a text message to my sales rep, and I'm like, I want this one in this color with this, thing. And I'm thinking about this case. What do you got for cases? And what do you think about having the special little treatment done to it?
Yeah.
And he's like, everything. You're gonna love this. He asked me a few questions. Boom. By the end of the day, done deal. We'll have it out for you. You'll see it next week. I never even questioned it. I knew I wasn't paying. I'm not buying some top dollar thing. It's, everyone's budget's different. But the funny thing about it is, like I said, not once did I even go like, do I,
Yeah.
No, I want it. I want it.
I love the idea that
I'm going to be happy.
and just because this is how my brain works, and I have to dig a little here, does the fact that it's not on the high end allow you to justify the purchase?
Oh, absolutely.
Easier? Okay. That's what I was thinking.
absolutely.
Because I'd be
If
the
it
same
was
way. Yeah.
If it was their American made version, I would be. That's why I'm like, you know what? I want this.
Mhm.
I want this. And of all the things, well, this is actually kind of wild. It is probably the least expensive instrument I have bought in probably 10 years.
Nah, funny. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why, and you're right. That's why I didn't have a qualm about it.
Yeah.
And it just felt right. And I was like, and to be honest, I'm making some money on gigs, and
Yeah, sure. Why not?
and actually work's been, I was really unsure about my finances last year. Things weren't working out for me. I don't know why, but it just felt like the time I got to the end of the month, I was like, I feel like this should be different.
I've been there before where you get to the end of the month and you're like, how do I not have more money than I do?
Yeah. And I didn't understand it.
Like I
And
thought
then-
I was
and-
doing
but-
really well. Yeah.
Yeah. This year's been the polar opposite. I mean, I lease a car, which was the worst financial decision you could make. But I was like, you know what? I just want to do this.
Yeah.
And I was afraid that it was going to, kind of dent things, and it hasn't. So I'm like, okay, and to be honest, I was like, things have felt so crummy that I want this because I want to feel really good about something. And the other thing is a little bit of a reward because I really do feel like no matter what frustrating thing happened, I didn't burn bridges. I didn't ruin relationships. And the ones that are important are still there, and they're still important to me. And the ones that don't really matter.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because in the past few years, as you've purged things you don't use and such, I kind of wondered if there was any element in there of because of your, I don't want to call it burnout, but your, how
it was burnout.
Like, you know what I mean? Because I've done that with, like, in the past with, like, art stuff where there's, and I don't mean the non-creative part of my life, but just before that, to where I got rid of stuff because I was kind of in a burnout. I'm like, I'm not going to use this, and I'd sell it to somebody or give it to somebody or whatever. And now you're kind of back to where music is fruitful and it's giving to you. So now it's like, I want this, and I'm going to enjoy the hell out of this. So it's like, now again, it's like you feel like this is something you really want to do. It's like in the past few years, I think it would have been, I don't know, I mean, zero disrespect in this, but I feel like it would have been more of a hollow purchase. This way, I feel like it's more of a meaningful purchase.
Does
that make sense?
You're picking up how I felt. Like, I felt like this was like, there's some things in this room.
Oh, I've done it too. Mess. Yeah, we're both terrible for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some things I look at and I go, well, I have it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have bought it.
Right.
But it's there.
Yeah. Yep.
The other thing that played a factor in this, and I am so happy. This is, you have no idea. No, you will probably understand how much this warms my heart. So my nephew in February, when I went on the cruise with my mom, I brought a set of strings with me to change the strings on my brother-in-law's guitar because they felt like barbed wire. And I knew, and my nephew was taking some guitar lessons, and he was showing some serious aptitude. So I sent a text message to my sister because I have some stuff that I want to get rid of it, and said, "Hey, is Peter still taking lessons?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, do you think you'd be interested in an electric guitar and an electric guitar amp? And she's like, I'll find out. And he said, yes. You have no idea how happy it makes me that somebody can get all this crap when I die.
Well, you're right.
And they might actually want it.
Well, like you said, you going through that stuff after your dad died, of finding how much is just crap, like you said, right? And I think I told you, like, I listened to a podcast where a guy talked about, it was a guy talking about what happens to things secondhand. Like, when you donate to Goodwill and what happens after that. But a lot of the podcast was him talking also about the fact that a lot of the people now, especially like the things that our grandparents and parents bought, there's a massive generational gap to where our generation doesn't want those things because we already have our own, or whatever the reason is. So a lot of that's why you see when you go into any Goodwill, pretty much I've been in, there are certain types of flatware, or not flatware, but what do you call it? Place settings and stuff like that. Like plates and cups and all this. And you'll see a similar, there's like a nest to it. Like you can look and go, yeah, I see these everywhere I go. And it's because of what was popular then. Like when my grandma died, she had a ton of teacups and some of the stuff she had. And it was like nobody really wanted any of it, So most of it ended up at Goodwill, because it was like nobody wants this. And, well, actually, no, I think some of it went to her church for, like, their rummage sale or something. But there's a good chance it'll still end up at Goodwill. But you see that stuff in these places. There's so many times walking in these stores that I'll go, oh, wow, my mom had that, or one of my grandmothers had that, kind of a thing. And it's like, yeah, someone else had that same story, I bet. And that's why it's sitting here, is because much like them, I don't want it either, Yeah. So you're right. It's like having something that somebody would actually be interested in is, it helps.
It does.
Because you don't look around going, this is a mess for someone in how many ever years.
Right? Like I keep saying, like somebody get here and grab it all before Sharon just pulls up a dumpster and throws it all away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
really.
that's basically how my one brother wanted to do things with my grandmother's house, I think, was just basically just open the door and put free on everything, and just if and then at the end everything just goes in a dumpster or a donation situation, it's like, and we're done,
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to going home at Thanksgiving and bringing some things. I might even ship some stuff beforehand. We'll see. See where I'm at with it, but I'm stoked. I'll wait till I get back from we're going on that Alaska cruise here in a week or so, and when I get back from that, we'll see what I do. But it's been paradoxical.
yeah.
But I guess that's life, right?
Yeah, right. Well, it's balance, I guess.
That's true. It's better up and down on the old heart meter than a flat line.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, the rumor has it.
Yeah, I've heard the flat line's no good, but yeah. Oh man, I've been trying to get. I have a filling that I needed to have filled before COVID, and I still have not gotten it filled. Because like the dentist I was going to, like either I would cancel or they would cancel, or like at one point I had a filling I needed that bothered me more, so I'd have that one done, when I'd go in, I had a few I needed done, and they're like, "Well, which one do you want to stay?" And I'm like, "Whatever one is the worst, let's for sure treat the worst one. That way it's not a pain situation,
Yeah.
And I had a couple weeks ago, I had an appointment, and I walk in, and the woman was like, she's like, "Oh, you should have gotten a phone call. We've canceled all appointments. We're only doing emergency visits now for the next couple months, probably." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Are you referring people elsewhere?" And she goes, "The best I can tell you is, go to your insurance and find whoever else you can go to." So like, okay. She goes, "I can put you on a list." I think I talked about this before. It was literally an actual physical list that she wrote my name on. And so I looked on my insurance, and the next closest is, and this sucks for me because of where I live. I'm in the very bottom part of Michigan. So pretty much because I have Medicaid, they want you to stay within the state. So I pretty much have to go. I can't go into Toledo most of the time for stuff. I have to go north. So I have to go to Monroe, which is like 20 minutes away, right? Which isn't that big a deal, but also it kind of sucks. The dentist I go to right now is like 5 minutes from my house. And there are like 3 other dentists between my house and the place I go now. So I checked each of them, and of course, none of them take my insurance. And so I found one in Monroe, but even there, like, they even say on their website that they're booking probably a month or 2 out. And I was like, "What that?" And it's like, I know what it is. It's because the low income places don't pay much, so they just don't have people working there. So it's like, okay, well, and it's like, the thing is, like, I could lie and say the filling, the cavity's hurting and probably get in sooner, but that's not me. I'm not, I'm not one to do that. But yeah, so it kind of sucks that I've got to go to a new dentist, it looks like, and not just a new dentist, but one that's decent, not horrible. I know there's a lot of people that drive 20 minutes for appointments and all that kind of stuff. But again, where I'm going is literally 5 minutes away, so it becomes a pain in the butt now because I don't drive. So now I have to get a ride up there, versus up the road is much easier to, get a ride up there because it's right here. But anyway, yeah, it's like, but it's so frustrating because, again, I'm grateful that I have insurance, but I also hate the fact that, where I live in the state makes it to where I can't go. There's tons of dentists in Toledo that would be within 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Like I said, right around me, I can think of at least 5 dental offices,
Wow.
that are within the 5-minute radius, basically. But, I did, on the upside, the place up there, I did read about, and the reviews for the place are really good. Like, everybody talks about how they're really awesome up there. So I was like, well, maybe this is for the best in the long run. Even though it's more of a pain in the butt, and eventually if this place down here starts opening back up to where they have, better policy, then maybe I can, I could switch back or something. But I miss so much when I had other insurance and I could just go anywhere I wanted, basically. I had like Blue Cross or something like that, and you could pretty much call anybody and yeah, come on in, and when you have Medicaid, it immediately shuts a lot of doors to you.
Yeah.
Which is insane to me because it's money from the government, but I learned some things about it as to why from a couple doctors that I've talked with, but it's just frustrating that people who are already in a position of need then have to stress because it's hard to find a place that takes your insurance.
Yeah.
Like if I was on Medicare, it'd be a different story, or some other, insurance, like I said, because the one place was like, yeah, we take all sorts of insurances on their website. And, do you take blah, blah, blah? No, like, okay, well, thanks. And same with eyeglasses, right? Like I know I need to make an eye appointment or an eye doctor appointment. And it's like the place I went to before, my insurance will pay for every 2 years, they'll pay for one pair of glasses, lenses, frames. But you basically get the bare bones everything. Like there's no anti-glare filter. There's none of the, and it's like, man, as much as I stare at a computer or a, screen of some sort, I really want that. So I have to out of pocket that. And I'm seeing commercials for places in town that are like, two, like, was it Stanton Optical? I think is like 2 pairs of glasses and a exam for like $80. And I'm like, oh wow, that's cheaper than what I pay. And that comes with the filter and stuff on the lenses. And I was like, man, I was like, I don't know if I can do that, because the last time I went for an eye appointment, she told me that this time I might have to have a little bit of a bifocal put in. And the $80 is just for straight, like normal lenses. So if I do have to have a bifocal, that's going to change and it's like, man, so it's like, the only thing I could think of is I go to the other place, get the exam and see what happens. If they say I've got to have a bifocal, then I get my glasses through them. If I don't, then I ask for the prescription and I go to the other place. That, it's like, it kind of sucks that I have to jump through, because last time to get that anti-glare and stuff on my lenses, I think it ended up being like $150 out of pocket. And the other place, if it's $80 and I get 2 pairs of glasses, that seems like a much better price. But anyway, but it's just, any of us with insurance, how it is as a kid, there's always some weird hoop you got to jump through, or, there's people using those, was it GoodRx and stuff like that. And they're finding at times where it's cheaper than their insurance for medicine. And it's like, this is crazy. Like, I'm fortunate that I have any insurance. I understand that. And Medicaid does pay for most things, within, but whatever they pay for, you are going to get the bare bones version of it. They are not going to allow you any sparkles on it, which is fine for the most part, But like with glasses, I don't understand why they don't pay for that anti-glare, because that's preventative care. That anti-glare helps keep your eyes from getting ruined by your screens, but they don't see it as preventative care, so they don't pay for it. So yeah, it's weird. Just, and I'm back to where I got to call that dentist office back. I need to call and make an appointment for my eyeglasses, and you see where the problem here is.
Yeah.
Phone call. Guess who hasn't made the phone calls? It's like, dang it. I thought the dentist office, I thought they were going to do all the stuff through email, and I was like, awesome, and then the woman, like, I go through and I fill out all the advanced paperwork and everything online, and then she sends me an email and was like, yeah, please give us a call for scheduling. I'm like, dang it. Like, can't I just tell you I need an afternoon and you just give me a day? So, and I need to call and reschedule my therapy because the last appointment of mine got rescheduled because my therapist had an emergency patient come up. So I got bumped, which was fine. You know, I'm in an okay spot, so I wasn't in a position of need there, but yeah. So yeah, kind of like you. It's like I've had some waves this past couple weeks, but nothing really bad. It's just the things that are triggering to my issues, you know, but nothing that's like, thank goodness, nothing dire or life-threatening or anything along those lines. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, so I think that's it. I think that recaps everything. So, how about you? Got anything else, or we good?
You know, I read it was an article that I just wanted to bring up because I thought it to be interesting. I don't want to go into the whole thing, but I kind of wanted to touch on part of it.
Okay.
And it's an old New York Times article, and the title is what actually kind of shocked me. It says codependency is a toxic myth in addiction recovery.
Really?
And I was like, okay, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
And what they're talking about is the tough love stuff.
Okay.
And that this idea that if you enable, you're being a codependent.
Mm.
And it goes into a lot of, it goes into like the diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders, the DSM,
Mm-hmm.
and what it's how it views codependency and all this stuff. And but this idea that it can worsen addiction, like that's the whole thing, is that addiction gets worse when you enable it.
Yeah.
And I read the article and I just got to this point where, because I've struggled with it too when I've worked with other people who have addictions, is like, what's the best way to handle this?
Yeah.
And I always refer back to the big gigantic biker guy that I asked the question of, like, how do you do tough love? And he says, no, I give the biggest freaking hug in the world and tell people I love them. And I support them no matter what. And so there's a lot of, this article goes into a lot of the detail about professional opinions and enabling and stuff. But there was just one anecdote where someone had their son was in rehab, and that the counselors at the rehab, she was sending the kid care packages. And so the professionals there said that she was going to love him to death, and that she should detach and let him hit bottom.
Mm.
Well, the kid died of an opioid overdose at the age of 24, not too long afterwards. And she said that the tough love thing was an absolute factor in his death, because he ended up on the street alone by himself. And
yeah,
and what I liked was that these are very poorly defined definitions. What does enabling mean?
Yeah, right.
What is that?
Right.
Being supportive financially is supposed to, prevent someone from bottoming out. And all I think about from my experience is I've heard of a lot of different bottoms.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to this. Who's to say, like, who can predict what someone's bottom is?
Well,
right?
yeah.
Like, where in the manual does it say, when you get your, I'd love to have our friend Jeannie on to talk about this.
Yeah.
I want to ask her, it's like, where in the manual does it say where someone's bottom is going to be?
Yeah, because again, we're not doctors, therapists, blah blah blah. But you've sat in enough meetings and heard enough stories of what rock bottom was for this person or this person. I would assume there's probably a ness to a lot of them, right? That there's similarities, but I bet you've heard pretty much everything under the sun as far as what was the cause
Huge
or
range.
what woke them up, right? So you never know what does and doesn't trigger. I can understand the thinking of not giving someone money because they're going to go do drugs with it, but also there's elements in some of this stuff that, like, if they don't do the drugs, they're going to die. But if they do the drugs, they might die also. And I understand that's a very difficult line to toe. Like, which side do you want to plant your flag on? But I'm with you. It'd be interesting maybe to have Jeannie on and talk to her about this a little bit, because I'm very curious on that regard as well, because I've always struggled with it, with people that, because, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like I've lost a niece and a nephew both to drug overdose. It's destroyed, their siblings, their parents, and they tried their best to love them, but not support their habit, basically. That was what they tried to do, And the thing is, like, even in doing so, it's like they stole from them. They, did other things to get the monies, those kind of things. So it's hard, because I think for most of us, we can't understand, similar to somebody with depression or whatever else, you can't fully understand it unless you've gone through it. Like, you can read all you want about it, you can study it, you can, learn about it, but there's still an element of, if you haven't suffered it yourself, we all want to apply logic to illogical things. Mental illness is not logical. Addiction is not logical. The feelings and stuff that are involved in it, or the causes sometimes. And we always want to, well, I would this, or, well, why don't they just this? And it's like, well, you don't understand. That isn't how your brain works in that scenario. It's no longer logical, So, that's a good question. Maybe we should talk to her about having her come on and talk about this a little bit more, maybe next time or something.
Yeah, because it really, I've read Melody Beatty's Codependent No More.
Right.
I've been involved with 12-step groups, and the one thing that I learned from it is codependency is just another version of controlling other people.
Yeah,
and I could see where you quote unquote enabling, or that could be viewed as a way of control. Or it can just be that you love somebody and you don't want them to be hating life and hurting. And I came back to a good friend of mine who called me one day, and he was struggling with his son, who is autistic. Well, he has Asperger's, but he's on that spectrum, and the frustration that they've had, and I reflected back on my own parents and them dealing with my, ups and downs in life. And I just told my friend, I said, Dave, you're always going to be his dad. You're never not going to be his dad.
Yeah.
Like, my mom and dad were always my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And they bailed me out probably more times than I deserved. And they did it because they loved me. And I said, I know you've probably heard that you're supposed to be tough and all this stuff. And I said, just love your son.
Yeah.
However that feels right, and be his dad.
Yeah.
Because I think that's who you're going to be no matter what. And don't second guess it.
Yeah.
I said, I think it would be worse is if you didn't act like you feel like in your heart you should, and something bad happened. I think you'd feel a lot worse.
Yeah. Well, a great example is, like you mentioned, with that woman, right? If she stops sending that kid those care packages and then he ODs, later or something, or if she keep, whatever it is, she's gonna feel.
She cut him off. He got out of
Yeah.
rehab, and she's like, "You're cut off."
Yeah.
And he ended up dead on the streets. And
Yeah.
she feels like, "What? I was just sending him. I would have kept sending him care packages."
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's, I think there's an element in this too that, we talked previously about how narcissism is being overly used by people on the internet. Like everybody's wanting to, this person's a narcissist and this person, and it's like, settle down. Like, first of all, like, unless you've got the training for this, you don't know what a narcissist probably is. Also, we all have narcissistic traits. We all have days where we're depressed, right? That does not mean it's a clinical definition. That just means you have traits. And I think in a regard, codependency was one of those hot words too. Everybody was blaming this and that on codependency and blah. And like you said, sometimes it's not. It's just, it's loving. And yes, sometimes it is manipulation through loving, basically. But I don't know how to word it. That doesn't always make it bad.
Yeah, well, it really.
There's definitely times it is bad. Yeah,
the way I really respected the presentation in Melody Beatty's book, because she points out where it becomes a cycle and a circle, and that that there are certain behavior patterns that are used to try to control somebody through, it is quite a lot. You are overly jealous with somebody, and then you resent them when they don't respond the way you think that they should.
Yeah.
And that's where the control comes in.
Right.
And there's it when it gets laid out, I understand it like when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, I can list examples of it because there's plenty in the book that lists examples of it.
Yeah.
However, like, I think a big part of it is that it's that part where you're trying to control another person using certain, like you said, certain characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
Because people, it's like we talk about where people talk about wanting to keep things clean and tidy and referring it to as OCD. And it's like, how dare you?
Yeah, it's like they're not.
Like, that might be a trait of OCD, but you have you go walk in someone that actually suffers from this in their footsteps for a day, and then come back to me and talk to me about your cleanliness.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was getting at. Is I think that if you look at a Venn diagram, there are a lot of situations where things overlap with codependency. Yes, in that there's a similarity, but it doesn't always mean that it is. And I don't know. I feel like, again, it's like most of this stuff, I feel like there really is a range on codependency, to where I think there's some of it where people are really, they're doing it and maybe even knowingly doing it, but they're not doing it with any malicious intent. They're doing it just out of love because they really just want you to be okay, and that's literally all it is. But then, of course, there's the hard end of it, to where it's just manipulation or blah blah blah, and most things fall somewhere in the middle of those things. But like I said, depression and anxiety and all that, they all have ranges. And I think people are too quick to immediately assume too far on the scale. Same with narcissism and everything else, is like people immediately want to push you to the far edge of narcissism if you're a little selfish. And it's like, and it's they're very different things here, you know. So
the actual nuts and bolts of a personality disorder is a pretty like that. Well, this was kind of crazy. Is this last week? I don't know if you remember me talking about my bandmate who ended up beating up his wife.
Yeah.
Well, he got sentenced, and I had told myself that I was willing to go visit him in jail or prison or wherever he ended up. And I would keep an open mind, and that I want to believe that people that, that see the error of their ways, and are willing to, change or that they deserve an opportunity for redemption and for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Even though they're like, in his case, he had, no matter what, I believe he has to do time for what he did.
Yeah.
But that I would keep an open mind as far as my judgment towards him based on his, how he's viewed the whole situation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to go be visiting him anywhere, because what happened in that courtroom during his sentencing was like, wow, you have a lot of years of therapy ahead of you if you want to change. And I honestly don't think he does, especially when a psychiatrist said he has signs of sociopathy. And I'm like, okay, you're a sociopath. Okay, it left me. I was actually ill for about an hour. To read what happened and some of his responses, and that this was someone I made art with.
Yeah. Well, you see it all the time. Like, you'll see something on the news where somebody will do fill in the blank crime, whether it's a shooting or beat someone up, whatever. And then they talk to the neighbors and they're like, I've known him like 30 years. I would have never, like, it's that kind of thing.
Right.
We only see what people give us. We don't see the whole story, and how people behave behind closed doors is very different many times, than what they give to everybody else. So that's too bad. Well, I hope at some point he can and wants to change. But you're right. If he is,
it was rough.
That's gonna be tough. Yeah.
But and thank goodness the judge saw through all of it and was like, yeah, the prosecutor recommended 3. I'm going 5 with the option of 15.
Oh wow.
Depending on if he does the work.
Ah, okay.
If you do all the work, you could be paroled after 10.
So he's got motivation to do it.
Well, yeah. I was like,
oof.
that guy sure demonstrated selfish behaviors, but in reality, he was psychotic.
Yeah. Right. But see, that's what I mean. It's like, we never know. And unless you do have like, you even see trained professionals when they'll talk about somebody being this or this. And a lot of them are like, I can't comment on that unless I have all of the facts in front of me. Like, I'm not going to just watch a person on TV.
Yeah.
I remember that with Trump. There were a lot of people diagnosing him as a narcissist. And I saw different mental health professionals that were like, I'm going to pump the brakes on that because I don't have all the things in front of me, And I'm like, that's how it's supposed to be done, a little more is, you can have your opinions and he shows this and this. So it's probably like whatever. But when it comes down to actually trying to diagnose someone, it's very irresponsible and I would assume unethical to do it without having all the facts in front of you. Yeah.
But I, as a non-professional, get to read somebody's exact words as written by a reporter who was there in the presence and recorded the whole thing, and I get to say, I never want to ever be around this person again for the rest of my life.
That is, you're 100% right on that. You do get to control what you do. Yeah.
And feel for, oh my goodness, his kids. Luckily, the good news is the judge gave them indefinite, a no contact order.
Oh, okay.
So if they choose for the rest of their lives to never have contact with him, they're allowed that.
Good. That's how that should be. It should be up to the kids. Like, at some point, if they want to give him a chance again, that should be up to them down the road. But until that day, they are granted indefinite. Good. There's going to be no hearing about it. They already tried to do a hearing on it, and the judge just laughed at them. As a matter of fact, he revoked his bail and sent him right back to jail. Wow.
So,
well,
anyhow,
good. Yeah.
But that was like, whew. Anyhow, that article, I found it interesting. I found it fascinating. If anybody else, that's learned about codependency and or has dealt with addiction, I just thought it was a good conversation piece. And
I was when you said the headline, I was wondering if it was going to somehow try to basically say that codependency becomes your new addiction, kind of a situation. That's what I thought it was going to go, is that, because you know how it is, a lot of addicts replace one addiction with another, you know. If anyone's watched any of those celebrity rehab shows, like everybody on those shows pretty much smokes, you know, and it was you know, or like you said, you know, before, where you've known people that used to be drinkers and now they're gym addicts, you know, or whatever it is. It's, you know, it's very common to replace one addiction with another because you have an addictive personality. So you start to find something interesting and now you're all in, like, right away, you know, and no matter what it is, it can be harmful, even if it's seemingly healthy. So that's where I thought that was going to go at first, was, you know, attacking, you know, that the people may, like, try to latch on to others, like trying too hard or something to that effect. But yeah. All right. Well, yeah. That's interesting, though. I've been finding different stuff interesting. I've seen quite a few people online posting stuff about kind of people approaching some things differently than in the past, where it's, you know, with a different set of kindness, essentially, or being kinder to a variety of things that maybe in the past the answer was, you know, for example, tough love or something to that effect, and that it doesn't always work. And I really think, like you said, like anybody's recovery, we're all similar, but we're also all different. What works for person A may not work. You know, 12-step doesn't work for everybody. Cold turkey doesn't work for everybody. Whatever the answer is doesn't work for everybody, right? Like antidepressants don't work for everybody. Therapy doesn't work for everybody. You know, so it's, as we've said on here, our hope most of the time is we just throw enough stuff at the wall that hopefully something sticks and helps. And I think that mentality is what some people are kind of approaching, you know, helping others with, is like similar to, like, if you're a manager, you can't just have one management style, or a teacher. If you just teach one way, students are going to fall behind because they don't learn that way or whatever, you know? So I'm curious to see, as time goes on, how policies shift like that, you know?
Yeah, that was what the person that wrote this article is someone that it's an opinion piece, and it's, you know, it's someone that looks at addiction and public policy, and that's what we're talking about. And you know, and she opens it with saying, "Hey, you're a family member of somebody that's addicted, and we're telling you that you have a disease."
Yeah. Well, the other thing, too, is it's like, it kind of makes you feel like, picture you're the family member on the outside. You're approaching things in your head. You're approaching with love, care, all this.
And then say, you've got the real problem.
Yeah. And it's
you're
like,
the real problem.
Now you're going to be on the defensive, and you may not want them treating your family member anymore.
Right.
You know?
I find it fascinating.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, maybe we'll reach out to Jeannie and see if maybe we can get her on the next episode and talk a little more about this or something. Yeah. So, yeah, good talk, though. Good topic. So, all right. Well, anything else, or think we're good?
I'm good.
All right.
Nice to catch up and vent a little. And
yeah, right. All right. Well, if you want to continue the conversation with us, you can... wait a second until I pull up my emails, and there it is. The website is... Well, go ahead.
I was going to say, and in the meantime, you can find me.
Oh, okay.
well, while Brian brings up everything.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm happy to see Threads kind of kicking in a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like friends getting on there. So you can find me on Threads and Instagram, Facebook, and is where I'm primarily continuing to post pictures of my dogs and now wildflowers, because it's that time of year. Oh, and today was the deadly fluff.
Oh, yeah.
I seriously, there were piles of white cottonwood fluff. As I drove to the parking lot, I'm like, those are mounds. That's, I was like, okay.
Yeah. My mom and I, it was a few weeks ago, I remember where we were going, but so much of it was blowing around. If you didn't know better, you'd swear it was snowing. Like it was
snowing,
crazy.
It feels like today it was snowing.
It's weird
Yeah,
how you
it was
see
wild.
that. It'd be like it's 80 degrees outside, but you see the stuff blowing around. It's like, it's
Right?
not winter, but it sure looks like it. All right. If you want to keep the conversation going, you can find our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. You can email us if you'd like to at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com, which actually, I was thinking about that. It was like, I really should probably change that because I don't ever look at that. I don't know if Jen looks at it anymore. So I should probably establish a new email or see if she wants me to just take over the email or something like that. But usually the best place if you want to reach out to us would be, through our socials. Like on Twitter, it would be at The Crazy Life Pod. On Facebook, it'd be facebook.com/group/Crazy Life Podcast. You can find me on a variety of socials at Stunami. My other podcast can be found at saltylanguage.com or at salty_language on Twitter. And that show is not safe for work. It's just me and my best friend talking about whatever. Like, that's what there was actually something I was going to bring up that I brought up on there, actually. I'll talk about it in a minute here, I guess. But we just talked about like video games and my power going out and Dark Side of the Ring, which is a TV show about like kind of some dark stuff that's happened outside of the wrestling business, which it's a really fascinating watch, especially for someone who likes wrestling. But even if you don't, some of the stuff is mind-blowing. We talk about Freedom 2.0 Water, Watchmen, the Watchmen animated series, stuff like that. So if any of that appeals to you, please give us a listen if you would. And also, we're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows on there. Or if you're looking for a network for your podcast, come join us over there. The other thing I wanted to talk about really quick, I forgot I brought up on Salty Language, was I think I had a little bit of a breakthrough with why I've been avoidant of some things in video games. And it was that while I was playing tense video games in the past, I had Jen there. And her and I would also be talking while I was playing a game, right? So I'm not my anxiety is not going to ramp up because I'm being distracted at the same time. Or when I would play Diablo, and in Diablo, there's parts in that game where you're like by yourself and there's like 40, 50 enemies all charging you at the same time. And it gets a little hairy, So, when you get done, you're kind of, kind of situation. And there's different moments like there when you beat a big boss or something like that in various video games, or Grand Theft Auto when there's a really tense mission or something like that. And I was like, for a while, a lot of the games I was playing with my friends on the weekend, or like Diablo, I played with my nephew quite a bit. So we're talking or joking around the whole time. And now when I'm playing games, I'm by myself. And like in Diablo, I don't want to turn music on because you hear the enemies sometimes before they attack you. So, and there's some games like that to where you want to hear before you get approached. There's other games that I can turn on music while I'm playing. Like if I was playing Madden, I don't want to listen to the play-by-play guys in the game because it gets very tedious very quickly. So I'd turn on music and listen to that instead. And, but I was thinking about it and I was like, I bet there's a lot of this to this. Because when Tony and I have played a few games and there's tense moments, it's still tense. But it's not as tense because we're both like laughing or making various comments or screaming at the thing or, trash talking the computer or whatever it is. So it kind of helps diffuse the moment. And he said the same thing that he notices when he's playing that Helldivers game, that it's the same idea that when it's super tense and he's playing alone, it's more intense than when he's playing with somebody else because other things kind of break that up. So, like in Diablo, there was these things called strongholds that I had kind of avoided because I thought they were really hard and I basically didn't want to do them because I didn't think I could. And, whatever. And then I read online, it was like, no, you could totally, these are something you can do solo. You don't need like a party to do these. So it was like, I tried one and I was like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Now, in fact, last night I played again. So update to Salty Language. I think I said I had done 5 or 6. I've now done 2 more. So now I'm up to like 7 or like, I don't know, somewhere around 7 to 9, somewhere in that range total of them, to where I was avoiding them altogether because of anxiety, basically. Now I see one and I'm like, whatever, and I just go right into it, So, and that's a big win for me. As weird and silly as it may sound, it's a big win. So I forgot I wanted to bring that up because it was kind of a breakthrough, and it's also a win that I wanted to celebrate a little bit. And I've been playing video games more recently, which is also a win because it's something I really enjoy. Even though it's only been one game, it's, because it's a grind out game, so it takes time to play it. But I've been jumping in, playing for a little bit each night, and then, okay, that's enough, and wrapping it up and whatever. So it's been working pretty well. So, yeah. And then, of course, as we always point out toward the end of the show, if you need help, please reach out. There's all sorts of resources and people out there willing to help. I understand as insurance can be a hurdle. Time can be a hurdle, but please be patient and please keep trying if possible. And, please reach out to your friends, especially if they're going through a rough situation. And just let them know you're there for them. Because like I said, the thing with the loneliness thing, it was just nice that some people were like, hey, I'm here, type of thing. Because like we've talked before, it's like, yeah, who knows? Maybe they don't really mean it, blah, 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 right? But they still took the time to say it. And that's still worth something. It's worth a lot. Because a lot of people don't care, or just won't bother. And not always because they don't care, but sometimes they're just they're ill-equipped. Like I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do kind of thing. So, not judging anybody. And then, of course, please be kind. There's a lot of not kind people or not kind rhetoric. Let's put it that way, being pushed at the moment and stuff. But please be kind and please try to be understanding and approach people with kindness when you see them in the world. It's just, things will go so much better versus it approaching with hostility or being standoffish to start a situation. So, yeah, please be kind and please help people when you can. There's a lot of us that need a little help here and there, and it is nice that people step up and help. So, yeah. So, all right, I'm done yapping. So, Henno, you want to take us out of here?
Yeah, live your omelet. That means you choose what you stuff in that pocket of egg goodness.